The forbidden encounter, the morning sun cast long shadows across the crystalline peaks of Zerion 7 when the sky began to burn. Emma Chen pressed her face against the reinforced window of the mining colony's observation deck, watching streaks of fire tear through the purple atmosphere. What she first mistook for another meteor shower quickly revealed itself to be something far more extraordinary. A massive form plummeted through the clouds, its descent creating sonic booms that rattled the colony's structures. The creature crashed into the valley below with earth-shaking force, sending up plumes of silver dust that sparkled in the alien sunlight. Emma's 10-year-old heart raced with excitement rather than fear. Living on a frontier mining world had taught her that wonder often came disguised as danger. "Emma, get away from that window." Her father, David Chen's voice, carried the authority of someone who had spent years keeping his daughter safe in one of the galaxy's most dangerous professions. As the colony's chief mining engineer, David had seen enough accidents to know when something posed a real threat. But as he joined his daughter at the observation window, even his weathered face showed amazement at what lay in the valley below. The creature was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Nearly 200 meters long, its body resembled a serpentine dragon from ancient Earth legends, but its scales shifted and changed color like living opals. Each breath it took sent ripples of rainbow light across its massive form. Even injured and motionless, it radiated an otherworldly majesty that made the surrounding landscape seem small and mundane. Within hours, the colony's quiet routine erupted into chaos. Word of the creature's arrival spread across the sectors. Communication networks and ships began arriving from across the local systems. The Zephyrian trade vessels came first, their sleek blue hulls gleaming as they established a cautious perimeter around the colony. The crystalline beings inside refused to leave their ships, their translated messages filled with words like ancient terror and forbidden knowledge. The Krell warriors arrived next, their massive black warships bristling with weapons. These proud reptilian beings had conquered dozens of worlds through sheer military might, but they too kept their distance. Their commander, General Vex, transmitted a single message to the colony: "Do not approach the Vorthok. Death follows in their wake." Dr. Kai Nakamura, the colony's physician and xenobiologist, frantically searched through his research databases. "Vorthok," he muttered, his usually calm demeanor cracking under pressure. "I've heard that name in the oldest galactic histories, but there's almost nothing concrete. Just fragments of legends and warnings passed down through generations of spacefaring species." Colony Administrator Sarah Martinez paced the command center, her auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun that couldn't quite contain her stress. "We have 17 different alien species requesting permission to land, and every single one of them is afraid of that creature. Some are demanding we evacuate the planet entirely." She gestured at the communication board, where urgent messages flashed in dozens of alien languages. Emma listened to the adults argue and plan, but her attention kept drifting back to the valley. Something about the creature called to her in a way she couldn't explain. It wasn't the fascination of a child seeing something new and exciting. This felt deeper, like a voice speaking directly to her heart in a language older than words. That evening, while the colony buzzed with activity and alien ships continued to arrive, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She slipped away from the residential quarters, carrying nothing but a plastic water bottle and the kind of absolute certainty that only children possess when they know something is right. The walk to the valley took her through the colony's outer perimeter, past humming mining equipment and stacks of processed crystals that would eventually power starships across the galaxy. The alien presence overhead created an eerie atmosphere, with searchlights and scanning beams crisscrossing the sky like luminous spiderwebs. As Emma approached the crash site, she could see the creature more clearly. The dragon lay on its side, one magnificent wing folded beneath its body at an unnatural angle. What she had mistaken for rainbow scales were actually wounds that leaked a silvery substance that evaporated into wisps of colored light. The creature's breathing was labored, each exhale creating small whirlwinds of glittering dust. Fear should have stopped her. Every instinct developed through millions of years of human evolution should have screamed at her to run from something so large and alien. Instead, Emma felt a profound sadness that seemed to echo in her own chest. The creature wasn't just injured. In body, its spirit was wounded too, carrying a pain that went far deeper than physical hurt. She uncapped her water bottle and walked forward with the fearless determination that had once driven her ancestors to cross oceans and explore continents. "Hey there," she called out, her young voice carrying clearly in the thin air. "You look like you could use some help." The dragon's head snapped up, revealing eyes like molten gold that seemed to hold the light of dying stars. Those ancient eyes fixed on Emma with an intensity that would have paralyzed most adults, but the girl simply smiled and continued forward. She could sense the creature's confusion, then amazement at her lack of fear. "I'm Emma," she said, settling, cross-legged just beyond the reach of the dragon's massive claws. "You crashed pretty hard, didn't you? That must hurt a lot." She held up the water bottle. "Would you like some water? My dad always says staying hydrated is important when you're hurt." The dragon studied her for long moments, its great head tilting slightly as if trying to understand this small being who showed no sign of the terror that every other species in the galaxy felt in its presence. Slowly, carefully, it lowered its massive head until its snout was just inches from Emma's outstretched hand. The moment their connection formed, Emma's world exploded with sensation. She felt the dragon's pain as if it were her own, a combination of physical agony and emotional anguish that nearly overwhelmed her. But underneath that suffering, she sensed something beautiful and profound. The creature's mind was vast and ancient, filled with memories of soaring between stars and watching civilizations rise and fall like flowers blooming and fading. Images flashed through Emma's consciousness. She saw the dragon species as they once were, guardians of the galaxy, protectors who used their incredible abilities to maintain peace between worlds. She witnessed their betrayal by the very species they had sworn to protect, and their subsequent exile to the far reaches of space. She felt their loneliness as they wandered the void for millennia, believing themselves to be the last of their kind. "Your name is Shimmer," Emma whispered, the knowledge arriving in her mind like a half-remembered dream. "And you've been alone for so very long." The dragon's eyes widened in shock. No being had spoken its true name in over 1,000 years. The connection between them deepened, and Emma felt waves of gratitude and wonder flowing from the ancient creature. Here was a being willing to approach without fear, to offer comfort instead of violence. Above them, the alien ships had noticed Emma's presence. Urgent communications crackled between the vessels as their occupants realized that a human child was doing the impossible, communing with a Vorthok dragon. General Vex's voice boomed over the colony's communication system. "Remove that child immediately. She doesn't understand the danger she's in." But Emma was beginning to understand something far more important. As she poured water from her bottle into her cupped hands and offered it to Shimmer, she realized that the dragon wasn't dangerous at all. The fear that every alien species carried was based on lies and misunderstandings that had been passed down for generations. Dr. Nakamura arrived first, running across the valley with a medical kit bouncing on his hip. He stopped short when he saw Emma sitting calmly beside the massive creature, her small hand resting on scales that shifted through the entire spectrum of visible light. "Emma, very slowly, move away from that creature," he called out, his voice carefully controlled despite his obvious fear. "She's not going to hurt me, Dr. Nakamura," Emma replied without taking her eyes off Shimmer. "She's hurt and scared and lonely. She just needs someone to care about her." The dragon's great head turned toward the approaching doctor, and Dr. Nakamura froze as those golden eyes studied him with ancient intelligence. David Chen arrived moments later, followed by Sarah Martinez and a squad of security personnel. The sight of his daughter casually interacting with a creature that had every alien species in the sector terrified stopped his heart. But as he watched, he realized that Emma wasn't in danger. The dragon's posture was defensive but not aggressive, and there was something almost protective in the way it positioned itself between Emma and the approaching adults. "Dad, her name is Shimmer, and she's not what everyone thinks she is," Emma called out, her voice filled with the excitement of someone making an incredible discovery. "The stories about her people are all wrong. They weren't conquerors or destroyers. They were guardians who tried to protect the galaxy, and they were betrayed by the species they helped." The assembled humans exchanged glances, unsure how to process this information. Above them, more alien ships continued to arrive, their occupants demanding action but unwilling to take it themselves. The standoff stretched on as Emma continued to comfort the wounded dragon, her small act of kindness beginning to reshape the understanding of beings across the galaxy. As the day faded into Zarian 7's brief twilight, Emma made a promise to Shimmer that would echo through the stars. She would help heal the dragon's wounds, both physical and spiritual. She would tell the truth about the Vorthok species and challenge the fear that had kept them in exile. And she would prove that sometimes the smallest act of compassion could change the course of galactic history. The wounded dragon's eyes began to glow brighter as hope returned to a heart that had been cold for centuries. The real story was just beginning. The ancient truth revealed. The arrival of Admiral Thrix changed everything. The massive Nexari dreadnought descended through Zarian 7's atmosphere like a falling mountain, its dark hull bristling with enough firepower to glass an entire continent. Unlike the other alien species, who maintained cautious distance, Admiral Thrix came with authority backed by the Galactic Defense Coalition and a mandate that brooked no argument. Emma felt Shimmer's fear spike as the dreadnought settled onto the valley floor, its landing thrusters scorching the crystalline ground black. Through their bond, she experienced flashes of ancient memory, other Nexari ships, other confrontations that had ended in betrayal and exile. The dragon's massive form tensed, preparing for what might be a final battle. "It's going to be okay," Emma whispered, pressing her small hand against Shimmer's snout. "I won't let them hurt you." Admiral Thrix emerged from his ship, flanked by a full military escort. The Nexari were an imposing species, tall and angular, with skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their eyes glowed with cold intelligence, and their movements carried the precise efficiency of beings who had never known defeat. Thrix himself stood nearly 3 meters tall, his black uniform adorned with medals representing victories across a dozen systems. "By the authority of the Galactic Defense Coalition, one hereby claim this Vorthok specimen for containment and study," Thrix announced, his voice amplified by translation devices that made his words boom across the valley. All civilian personnel will evacuate this area immediately. David Chen stepped forward, placing himself between the Admiral and his daughter. With respect, Admiral, that's not going to happen. My daughter has established some kind of communication with the creature. She's not in danger. Thrix's glowing eyes fixed on David with the kind of stare that had intimidated planetary governors and crime lords. Mr. Chen, your daughter is interfering with a matter of galactic security. The Vorthok are not pets to be befriended. They are weapons of mass destruction that brought the galaxy to its knees millennia ago. That's not true, Emma's voice rang out across the valley, startling everyone with its strength and conviction. The 10-year-old girl stood up beside Shimmer, her small form dwarfed by the dragon but somehow radiating an authority that made even Admiral Thrix pause. Shimmer showed me the real history. The Vorthok weren't destroyers, they were guardians, who protected smaller species from real threats. Through their deepening bond, Emma felt Shimmer gathering courage. The dragon raised her massive head and spoke, not with words but with images and emotions that Emma translated for the assembled crowd. She says the Vorthok were created by an ancient civilization to maintain balance in the galaxy. They prevented wars, stopped species from going extinct, and kept trade routes safe from pirates and raiders. Admiral Thrix's expression shifted from contempt to concern as Emma continued translating Shimmer's memories. The Coalition's founding species weren't victims of Vorthok aggression. They were the aggressors who wanted the dragon's power for themselves. When the Vorthok refused to become weapons of conquest, they were branded as monsters and hunted to near extinction. Dr. Nakamura had been quietly running scans on Shimmer while Emma translated, his instruments revealing data that supported the girl's impossible claims. Admiral, the dragon's biosignatures don't match the profile of a predator species. Her brain structure suggests high intelligence and emotional complexity, more consistent with a guardian species than a destroyer. Ancient propaganda, Thrix dismissed, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. The historical records are clear. The Vorthok devastation nearly destroyed galactic civilization. Shimmer's response came as a wave of sorrow so profound that Emma nearly collapsed under its weight. The dragon shared her most painful memory, the moment when the species she had sworn to protect turned against her people, using weapons that had been gifts from the Vorthok themselves. Emma saw entire dragon clans falling from the sky, their life force drained by devices that turned their own protective abilities against them. The devastation wasn't caused by the dragons, Emma said, tears streaming down her face as she experienced Shimmer's ancient grief. It was caused by the war to eliminate them. Entire star systems were destroyed in the fighting, and the surviving Vorthok were blamed for the damage caused by those who hunted them. Sarah Martinez had been coordinating with the colony's research team during the confrontation, and now she stepped forward with data that would shake the foundations of galactic history. Admiral, we've been analyzing the energy signatures from the dragon's wounds. The weapon that injured her matches technology described in classified Coalition files as Vorthak-derived defensive systems. Someone is using their own people's technology against them. The implications hit Admiral Thrix like a physical blow. If the dragons truly were guardians rather than destroyers, then the Coalition had built its entire power structure on a lie. Worse, someone within the Coalition was actively hunting the last surviving members of a peaceful species. Emma felt Shimmer's decision before the dragon acted. Ancient powers that had been dormant for centuries began to awaken as the dragon prepared to defend herself and the humans who had shown her kindness. The air around them began to shimmer with barely contained energy, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated with harmonics that made the assembled ship's instruments go haywire. "Wait," Emma called out, pressing both hands against Shimmer's scales. "There's another way." Through their bond, she shared human memories of her own species' capacity for change and growth. She showed Shimmer images of humans learning from their mistakes, of enemies becoming allies, of justice eventually triumphing over prejudice. The dragon's power ebbed as hope replaced desperation. "Shimmer knows where the other Vorthok are hiding," Emma announced. "There are dozens of them scattered across the galaxy, living in exile and slowly dying of loneliness. But she also knows something else. There's a coalition official who's been systematically hunting them down." Admiral Thrix's military bearing cracked as the weight of the revelation settled on him. "Who?" The dragon's response came as a series of images that made Emma gasp. She saw a familiar figure coordinating attacks on Vorthok refugees, someone high-ranking enough to access coalition resources but corrupt enough to use them for personal gain. "General Vex," Emma whispered. "He's been selling Vorthok locations to weapons dealers and research labs. That's why Shimmer was injured. She was trying to warn the others when his ships attacked her. The Krell general's warships had been maintaining position throughout the confrontation, but now several of them began to move toward the edges of the system. Dr. Nakamura's scans detected massive energy buildups consistent with jump drive preparations. "He's running," Sarah observed. "That's as good as a confession." What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. Emma, a 10-year-old human girl, climbed onto the back of an ancient dragon and soared into space to prevent a war. Criminals escape. The bond between them had grown so strong that Shimmer's protective fields automatically extended around Emma, allowing the child to survive in the vacuum of space. The sight of a human child riding a Vorthok dragon shattered every preconception that the assembled alien species held about both humans and dragons. The Zephyrian traders broadcast the image across their trade networks. The remaining Krell warriors, ashamed of their general's betrayal, pledged their support to bringing him to justice. Even Admiral Thrix found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about galactic history. Shimmer's pursuit of General Vex became a running battle across 3 star systems. The dragon's ancient powers, dormant for millennia, awakened. In response to righteous fury and the pure determination of her human companion, energy weapons that should have been fatal were absorbed and redirected. Krell warships found themselves outmaneuvered by a creature that could fold space around herself like origami. The final confrontation took place in the asteroid field where General Vex had planned to rendezvous with his criminal contacts. Shimmer's roar shattered asteroids and sent Vex's remaining ships spinning out of control. But it was Emma's voice, amplified by the dragon's telepathic abilities, that delivered the killing blow. "You're under arrest for crimes against sentient beings," the child's voice echoed across every ship in the sector. "And you're going to tell everyone the truth about what you did to the Vorthok people." The evidence retrieved from General Vex's ships confirmed everything that Shimmer had shown Emma. Detailed records of Vorthok hunts, sale agreements with illegal research facilities, and communications with corrupt coalition officials painted a picture of systematic genocide driven by greed and fear. Admiral Thrix, faced with undeniable proof of his organization's complicity, made the decision that would define his legacy. he broadcast the full contents of Vex's files to every world in Coalition space, along with his own formal apology to the Vorthok people. The revelation sparked the largest political upheaval in galactic history. Species that had built their entire cultures around fear of the Vorthok had to confront the truth that they had been deceived for generations. Some refused to accept the evidence, clinging to ancient prejudices, but others, inspired by Emma's example, began reaching out to the surviving dragons with offers of friendship and alliance. Emma's return to Zerion 7 marked the beginning of a new age. Shimmer's recovery had been accelerated by the emotional healing that came from finally being able to tell her people's true story. Other Vorthok began emerging from their hidden refuges, cautiously making contact with the species that had once hunted them. The mining colony became an unlikely diplomatic center, as humans served as intermediaries between the dragons and the various alien species. Emma, despite her age, found herself appointed as the first official human Vorthok ambassador, a position that came with significant responsibility but also incredible rewards. Dr. Nakamura established the galaxy's first xenobiological research station dedicated to understanding rather than exploiting alien life. His work with Shimmer led to medical breakthroughs that benefited dozens of species, proving that cooperation could achieve far more than conquest ever could. David Chen watched his daughter grow into her new role with a mixture of pride and amazement. The girl who had once collected interesting rocks from mining sites was now shaping the future of galactic civilization. But at heart, she remained the same compassionate child who had seen a wounded creature and wanted to help. Sarah Martinez coordinated the establishment of the Vorthok Sanctuary, a protected space where the surviving dragons could heal both physically and emotionally from millennia of persecution. The sanctuary became a symbol of redemption and second chances, proving that even the greatest injustices could be overcome through courage and compassion. As Zerion 7's sun set on what historians would later call the Day of Revelation, Emma sat beside Shimmer on a hill overlooking the colony. The dragon's scales had regained their full opalescent glory, shifting through colors that had no names in human language. Their bond had evolved beyond mere communication into something approaching true friendship between two very different species. "What will you do now?" Emma asked, her question carrying both words and emotion through their telepathic link. Shimmer's response came as a complex mixture of gratitude, hope, and determination. The dragon would help her people heal from their long exile, while working to prevent the fear and misunderstanding that had nearly led to their extinction from happening to other species. Emma nodded, understanding perfectly. Together, they would build a galaxy where differences were celebrated rather than feared, where the smallest act of kindness could grow into movements that changed the course of history. The wounded dragon had found healing through the compassion of a human child. But the real miracle was how that healing had spread to encompass entire civilizations. The stars above Zarian 7 seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if the universe itself approved of the new alliance between humans and dragons. In the years to come, their partnership would face challenges and setbacks, but the foundation built on a child's simple offer of water to a thirsty stranger would prove unbreakable. Emma Chen had offered water to a wounded dragon and received the friendship of an entire species in return. But more than that, she had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their determination. It was their capacity to see beyond fear and prejudice to the common bonds that connected all living beings. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.